The alarm sounds before sunrise. The room is cold. The world outside is still dark. Nothing in you wants to move. Your body feels heavy. Your mind begins negotiating immediately. 5 more minutes. You worked hard yesterday. You can start tomorrow. No one will know. And that last sentence is where the real battle begins. No one will know. Not your friends, not your family, not the people who doubted you, not the world, but you will know. And the person you become is shaped by what you do when no one is watching. This is where discipline begins, not in public, not when applause is waiting, not when motivation burns brightly and the path feels exciting. Discipline begins in the quiet hours, when comfort speaks with a familiar voice and asks you to betray your future for a small moment of relief. Most people lose their lives in small moments like this, not through one great failure, but through 1,000 tiny surrenders. They do not fall all at once. They drift. They delay the hard conversation. They avoid the difficult task. They silence the truth. They choose pleasure over purpose. They trade their future for the comfort of the present. And every time they do, something inside them weakens, not visibly at first. No one notices the first skipped promise. No one sees the first compromise. But slowly, quietly, the mind begins learning a dangerous lesson. I do not have to obey myself. That lesson ruins people, because the mind is always being trained, either by your discipline or by your weakness. Every action teaches the mind what kind of person you are. Every promise kept strengthens identity. Every promise broken weakens it. And eventually, you stop believing your own words. You say, tomorrow, but some part of you no longer believes it. You say, I will change. But your mind remembers the countless times you said the same thing and returned to the same habits. This is why discipline is not merely about routines. It is about trust with yourself. And when a person loses trust with himself, he becomes vulnerable to everything. Comfort controls him. Emotion controls him. Fear controls him. Other people control him. The world controls him. He may appear free, but internally he is ruled by impulse. The Stoics understood this with brutal clarity. They knew that a person who cannot command himself will eventually be commanded by something else. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That sentence is not soft. It does not comfort the undisciplined. It confronts them, because it reveals that freedom is not doing whatever you feel like doing. Freedom is not obeying every desire. Freedom is not avoiding discomfort. Freedom is the ability to choose what is right, even when the body begs for what is easy. And this is where most people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline is punishment. They think discipline means living without pleasure, without rest, without softness, without joy. But real discipline is not hatred toward yourself. It is protection. It protects you from your lower impulses. It protects your future from your moods. It protects your peace from chaos. It protects your purpose from distraction. A disciplined life is not a prison. It is a fortress. And the person who builds that fortress becomes difficult to break, not because life becomes easy, but because he becomes harder to move. Imagine a statue standing on a mountain during a storm. The wind strikes it. Rain runs across its face. Thunder shakes the sky. Dark clouds gather like armies. But the statue does not negotiate with the storm. It does not complain. It does not ask why the weather has changed. It stands. This is what discipline does to the mind. It teaches you to stand, not only when life is fair, not only when people support you, not only when you feel inspired, but when everything in you wants to collapse. Discipline is the art of standing when comfort invites you to kneel. And every person eventually meets the hour when discipline is tested. For some, it comes through failure. For others, rejection. For others, heartbreak, poverty, temptation, loneliness, humiliation, or exhaustion. Life has many ways of revealing whether your mind is built from stone or sand. At first, the person who lacks discipline does not see the danger. He thinks he is simply relaxing, simply resting, simply avoiding stress, simply enjoying life. But avoidance has a cost. Each time he avoids the hard thing grows stronger in his imagination. The task becomes heavier. The fear becomes larger. The discomfort becomes more powerful. The self-respect becomes smaller. And eventually, he does not only avoid the task, he begins avoiding himself. He cannot sit alone without distraction because silence reminds him of everything he has delayed. He cannot look honestly at his life because honesty would demand action. So he numbs. He scrolls, he eats, he watches, he complains, he fantasizes. He tells himself stories about who he could become someday. But someday is where weak intentions go to die. The disciplined person understands that life is not changed by fantasy, it is changed by action. Quiet action, repeated action, unseen action. Action when the emotion is gone. Action when the room is cold and the world is dark and no one is coming to save you. That is the foundation of an unbreakable mind. Not intensity, consistency. Intensity impresses people. Consistency transforms people. Many people can become inspired for a day. A song inspires them. A video inspires them. A quote awakens something inside them. They feel powerful for an hour. They imagine a new life. But inspiration without discipline is only emotional weather. It passes. And when it passes, the old self returns, the old habits return, the old excuses return. This is why motivation is unreliable. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the firewood. Without discipline, the spark dies quickly. But with discipline, even a small spark can become a flame that survives through the night. Marcus Aurelius did not write his reflections from a life of ease. He wrote them while carrying the weight of an empire, war, plague, betrayal, pressure, loss, political chaos, human weakness. And still, in the middle of that burden, he reminded himself, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work, as a human being. He was not speaking about a job. He was speaking about duty, the duty to rise, the duty to act, the duty to fulfill the role given to you by nature. This is a powerful idea. You were not born merely to consume comfort. You were not born only to be entertained. You were not born to drift from pleasure to pleasure, always avoiding the weight of responsibility. You were born with the capacity to become useful, strong, wise, disciplined, a person whose life is shaped by purpose, not mood. But that version of you does not appear automatically. It must be built. And the building is uncomfortable. There's no way around this. The unbreakable mind is not born in comfort. Comfort softens the will when it becomes the master. A little comfort is human. Rest is necessary. Peace matters. But when comfort becomes the highest value, a person begins shrinking. He no longer asks what is right. He asks what is easy. He no longer asks what will build me. He asks what will soothe me right now. And the tragedy is that a life dedicated to comfort does not become peaceful. It becomes anxious. Because deep down the soul knows when it is being underused. You can distract the mind, but you cannot fully silence the knowledge that you are capable of more. That knowledge follows you. It appears at night. It appears in quiet moments. It appears when you see someone else doing what you were afraid to do. It appears when time passes and nothing changes. That feeling is not random. It is the voice of your unlived life calling you back. And discipline is how you answer it. Not with dramatic declarations, not with emotional speeches, but with one act, then another, then another. A person does not become disciplined by deciding once. He becomes disciplined by choosing repeatedly, especially when the choice feels small, because the mind does not distinguish between small betrayals and large ones as much as you think. Every avoided action carries a message. Every completed action carries a message. When you rise early, you tell your mind, I lead. When you train your body, you tell your mind, I can endure. When you finish the work, you tell your mind, my word has weight. When you resist temptation, you tell your mind, desire does not rule me. When you remain calm under pressure, you tell your mind, I am stronger than impulse. These messages accumulate. Over time, they become identity, and identity becomes destiny. This is why discipline changes everything. It does not only change your schedule, it changes your relationship with yourself. A disciplined person walks differently, not because he needs to appear superior, but because he carries evidence. Evidence that he has done hard things. Evidence that he has kept promises when no one applauded. Evidence that he can trust himself under pressure. This creates a quiet confidence that cannot be faked. Many people perform confidence. They speak loudly, they posture, they seek attention. But beneath the performance, they are fragile because their confidence depends on how others respond. Discipline builds a different kind of confidence. The kind that does not need constant validation, the kind that comes from private victories, the kind forged in silence. That confidence is calmer, less desperate, more grounded. It does not ask the room for permission, it simply exists. The Stoics valued this because they understood that character is built through repeated conduct, not words, not intentions, not appearance. Conduct. You are not what you say you value. You are what you repeatedly choose. If you say you value strength but choose weakness, your choices speak louder. If you say you value purpose but live in distraction, your life reveals the truth. If you say you value peace but feed chaos, your habits reveal your master. This is not meant to shame you. It is meant to wake you. Because the moment you see clearly, you can begin again. Discipline is not reserved for people who have never failed. In fact, discipline often begins after failure, after the collapse, after the humiliation, after the long season of drifting, after the moment when you finally admit, I cannot keep living like this. That admission hurts, but it is sacred. Because many people never reach honesty. They explain everything away. They blame the world. They blame their childhood. They blame other people. They blame timing. They blame luck. And while some of those things may have mattered, blame alone does not build a life. At some point, a person must ask, what is still within my control? That question is the doorway to Stoicism. Not because it ignores pain, but because it refuses to let pain become an excuse for surrender. Your past may explain some of your wounds, but your discipline decides what you build despite them. This is where real transformation begins. The undisciplined mind says, I cannot act until I feel better. The disciplined mind says, I act because I want to become better. The difference is everything. Most people wait for their emotions to improve before changing their life. But often, emotions improve because you begin changing your life. Action creates clarity, discipline creates energy, order creates peace, and self-respect returns when you stop abandoning yourself. There is an ancient simplicity to this. Do what must be done. Do it without complaining. Do it without needing applause. Do it when you feel strong. Do it when you feel weak. This does not mean you ignore exhaustion. It means you stop letting temporary emotion govern permanent direction. A disciplined person listens to the body, but does not worship comfort. He rests when rest is necessary, but he does not disguise avoidance as rest. That distinction matters, because many people are not tired, they are undisciplined. And many others are genuinely exhausted because they have lived without discipline for too long. Their life is chaotic, their mind is cluttered, their sleep is poor, their priorities are unclear, their emotions are reactive, their days are scattered, and then they wonder why they feel drained. Discipline is not only about pushing harder. Sometimes discipline means bringing order to chaos, sleeping when you should sleep, eating what strengthens you, training the body, guarding attention, finishing what you start, refusing emotional drama, choosing silence over unnecessary conflict. A disciplined life is not merely intense, it is ordered, and order brings peace. The mind does not thrive in chaos. A chaotic life creates a chaotic mind. When your room is disordered, your schedule is disordered, your attention is fractured, your promises are broken, your habits are unstable. The mind absorbs that disorder. It becomes restless, easily provoked, easily distracted, easily discouraged. Discipline gives the mind walls, a structure, a place to stand. This is why the morning matters. The first hour of the day often tells the mind who is in command. If you wake and immediately surrender to impulse, your mind learns surrender. If you wake and choose intention, your mind learns leadership. This does not mean every morning must be perfect. Perfection is another trap. But the direction matters. A person who begins the day with discipline carries a different energy. He has already won something before the world begins making demands. And those small wins become armor. Not visible armor, inner armor. The kind that protects your mind when life becomes difficult. Because life will become difficult. No routine will prevent hardship. No discipline will eliminate pain. But discipline determines whether pain destroys you or shapes you. The undisciplined person meets hardship and collapses into chaos. The disciplined person meets hardship and returns to principles. What is within my control? What action is required? What must be accepted? What must be endured? What must be corrected? These questions create steadiness. And steadiness is priceless. The world is filled with people who are controlled by whatever happens next. One bad message ruins their day. One insult destroys their peace. One failure makes them quit. One temptation pulls them off path. One discomfort sends them back to old habits. They do not lack potential. They lack inner command. Discipline gives you that command. It teaches you to stop negotiating with weakness as if weakness were wise. Because weakness can sound convincing, it will speak in your own voice. It will say, "You deserve this. You can skip today. You have time. You are too tired. It does not matter. No one cares." But the disciplined mind learns to hear these voices without obeying them. This is not easy. At first, the weaker self is loud. It has been fed for years. It knows your excuses. It knows your fears. It knows how to disguise comfort as logic. But every time you refuse it, it loses authority. And every time you act despite it, another part of you grows stronger. This is the war most people never see. The war between the self that wants comfort and the self that wants freedom, the self that wants relief, and the self that wants respect, the self that wants escape, and the self that wants purpose. Discipline is choosing the higher self before the lower self takes control, not once, daily, sometimes hourly. That is why discipline is humbling. It reminds you that greatness is not built by fantasy, but by repetition. A single workout does not build the body. A single disciplined day does not build the life. A single moment of restraint does not build character. But repeated over time, these small acts become something immense, like drops of water carving stone, quiet, unseen, relentless. That is how an unbreakable mind is built, not through dramatic intensity, through disciplined repetition. And in a world addicted to instant results, this is almost rebellious. Everyone wants transformation quickly, a new routine, a new technique, a new identity, a new life. But the deep things do not grow quickly. Mountains are not made in a day. Trees with deep roots are not grown overnight. A strong mind is not built by one emotional decision. It is built by returning to the path again and again, especially after failure. This is where many people misunderstand discipline. They think falling means they are undisciplined. No. Staying down means they are undisciplined. The disciplined person may fall, but he returns. He may fail, but he studies the failure. He may have weak days, but he does not let a weak day become a weak identity. This is critical. Many people break discipline once, then use that break as permission to abandon everything. They miss one workout and quit for a month. They waste one morning and lose the whole day. They make one mistake and say, "This is who I am." That is not truth. That is emotional laziness. A disciplined mind does not worship perfection. It practices return to the path, return to the promise, return to the standard, return to the work. This is why discipline is also forgiveness, not soft forgiveness, strong forgiveness, the kind that says, "I failed, but I will not collapse into self-pity. I fell, but I will not make failure my home. I wasted time, but I will not waste the lesson." This is how resilience is formed. Resilience is not never bending. It is refusing to remain broken, and discipline is the daily practice of becoming harder to break. There is a moment in every disciplined life when the work begins changing from something you force yourself to do into something that begins carrying you. At first, you carry the discipline. Later, the discipline carries you. The routine becomes a structure you can lean on during chaos. The habit becomes a rope when emotion pulls you downward. The standard becomes a light when motivation disappears. This is why disciplined people often appear calm, not because they have no problems, but because they have systems. They do not wake up every day asking who they are. Their actions remind them. They do not rebuild identity from nothing each morning. Their habits reinforce it. They do not depend entirely on mood. Their standards guide them. This is freedom, a strange kind of freedom that only appears after restraint. The undisciplined person sees restraint as limitation. The disciplined person knows restraint creates power. If you restrain your appetite, your body changes. If you restrain your anger, your peace grows. If you restrain your attention, your focus deepens. If you restrain your speech, your words gain weight. If you restrain your impulses, your future opens. This is why discipline changes everything, because every form of power requires sacrifice. You cannot have deep focus while obeying every distraction. You cannot have strong health while obeying every craving. You cannot have emotional peace while feeding every reaction. You cannot have meaningful achievement while avoiding every discomfort. Life asks for payment. The question is not whether you will pay. The question is whether you will pay with discipline now, or regret later. Regret is expensive. It collects interest. A person can ignore discipline for years, but eventually life sends the bill. The body weakens, the mind scatters, relationships suffer, opportunities pass, self-respect fades, potential becomes memory, and one day the person looks back and realizes the enemy was never time, it was avoidance. That is a hard truth, but it can save you. Because if avoidance has shaped your life, discipline can reshape it. You are not trapped by what you have repeatedly done, but you will be shaped by what you repeatedly do next. The next action matters, not because it changes everything immediately, but because it begins a new pattern, and patterns become life. You do not need to fix your whole future today. You need to stop betraying the next moment. That is where power returns. In the next honest choice, the next disciplined action, the next refusal to surrender. This is practical Stoicism. Not merely reading quotes, not merely admiring ancient men, but living by principle when comfort is available. The Stoics trained themselves through difficulty, not because suffering was good by itself, but because voluntary hardship prepared them for involuntary hardship. When you willingly choose discomfort, life's discomfort shocks you less. A cold morning becomes training. A difficult workout becomes training. A disciplined schedule becomes training. Silence becomes training. Restraint becomes training. Every act of discipline tells the mind, I can do what is hard. And once the mind truly believes this, life changes. Fear weakens. Excuses weaken. Temptation weakens. Not because they disappear, but because they no longer appear larger than you. This is the unbreakable mind, a mind that does not depend on perfect conditions, a mind that can function under pressure, a mind that can endure loneliness without panic, a mind that can face criticism without collapse, a mind that can continue working while uncertain, a mind that can remain calm when the body wants comfort and the world offers distraction. This kind of mind is rare, and because it is rare, it becomes powerful. But it is not built in public. It is built in private, in the small room, in the early morning, in the lonely walk, in the repeated choice, in the moment you want to quit and do not, in the moment no one sees and you still act with honor. That is where the real self is formed. Most people want the appearance of strength. Few want the training that creates it. They want the body without the hunger, the wisdom without the reflection, the peace without the boundaries, the success without the discipline, the confidence without the private victories. But life does not reward desire alone. It rewards alignment. When your actions align with your aim, power gathers. When your habits align with your values, peace gathers. When your days align with your purpose, identity gathers. This alignment is discipline, and without it, a person remains divided. He wants one life, but lives another. He speaks of growth, but chooses comfort. He dreams of strength, but practices weakness. This division creates suffering. Not always loud suffering, quiet suffering. The kind that follows you into every room. Because you know when you are not living according to your own standard. You know when you are capable of more. You know when comfort has become a cage, and the mind cannot be peaceful while the soul is being betrayed. This is why discipline brings peace, not because it makes life easy, because it removes inner contradiction. You stop fighting yourself. Your words and actions begin matching. Your intentions and habits begin aligning. Your future and present begin speaking the same language. That is a powerful feeling. It is deeper than pleasure. It is self-respect. And self-respect is one of the strongest foundations a human being can have. People can criticize you, but self-respect steadies you. People can misunderstand you, but self-respect anchors you. People can leave, but self-respect keeps you from abandoning yourself. This is why discipline affects relationships too. An undisciplined person often seeks others to save him from himself. He wants reassurance, approval, attention, comfort, distraction. But a disciplined person becomes less needy because he has built inner structure. He can love without clinging, serve without losing himself, be alone without collapsing, speak without desperation, walk away without hatred. Discipline gives dignity to emotion. It does not erase feeling. It gives feeling a wise container. Without discipline, emotion spills everywhere. Anger damages relationships. Fear delays action. Desire destroys focus. Sadness becomes identity. But discipline says, I feel this, but I will not be ruled by it. That sentence alone can change a life. I feel this, but I will not be ruled by it. That is Stoicism in practice. Not pretending the emotion is absent, but refusing to crown it king. This is how emotional mastery begins. You stop saying, I am angry. You say, anger is present. You stop saying, I am afraid. You say, fear is present. You create distance between the self and the storm, and in that distance, freedom appears. The storm may rage, but you are not the storm. You are the one observing it, the one choosing, the one standing. This is why discipline and awareness belong together. Discipline without awareness becomes rigidity. Awareness without discipline becomes passivity. But together they create wisdom. You see clearly, then you act rightly. This is the Stoic path. Clear perception, right action, willing acceptance. Discipline strengthens all three. It trains perception because the undisciplined mind sees through craving, fear, and impulse. It trains action because discipline turns values into behavior. It trains acceptance because disciplined people understand that not everything can be controlled. They do their work. They release the rest. This is one of the deepest forms of peace. To act fully without needing to control every outcome. The undisciplined person either avoids action or becomes obsessed with results. The disciplined person focuses on the process. Did I act with integrity? Did I do what was required? Did I keep my standard? Did I control what was mine to control? If yes, he rests. Even if the world does not applaud, that is freedom. Because outcomes are unstable. Praise is unstable. Recognition is unstable. But discipline is yours. It is one of the few things no one can give you, and no one can take from you without your cooperation. They can take comfort. They can take status. They can take opportunity. They can take approval. But they cannot force you to betray your principles. That surrender must be chosen. And discipline is the refusal to choose it. The refusal to become less than you are capable of becoming. The refusal to let pain make you bitter. The refusal to let comfort make you weak. The refusal to let distraction steal your life. The refusal to let fear write your story. This refusal is not loud. It is quiet. It is waking up and doing the work. It is saying no when no is necessary. It is finishing what you start. It is keeping your mind clean. It is returning to the path after failure. It is choosing the future over the craving. It is choosing truth over appearance. It is choosing purpose over approval. That is discipline. And slowly it changes everything. At first the world may not notice. No one may praise you. No one may understand the private war you are fighting. But you will notice. You will feel it in the way you carry yourself, in the way your thoughts become clearer, in the way your emotions become less chaotic, in the way your word begins meaning something again, in the way your eyes change, less scattered, more steady. The unbreakable mind is not noisy. It does not need constant proof. It becomes quiet because it has evidence. Evidence of endurance, evidence of restraint, evidence of private victories, evidence that the person within can be trusted. And this trust becomes a kind of inner wealth, a wealth deeper than money, deeper than praise, deeper than status. Because if you trust yourself, you can rebuild after loss. If you trust yourself, you can begin again after failure. If you trust yourself, you can stand alone without begging to be rescued. This is why discipline is spiritual, even when it appears practical. Because every disciplined act is a declaration. My life matters enough to be governed. My future matters enough to be protected. My mind matters enough to be trained. My purpose matters enough to be defended. Many people treat their attention like trash. They give it to anything, every notification, every argument, every temptation, every distraction, then wonder why their life feels scattered. Attention is life. Whatever repeatedly captures your attention slowly shapes your mind. This is why guarding attention is one of the highest forms of discipline now. In ancient times, a person fought external hardship more visibly: cold, hunger, war, labor, distance. Today, many battles are invisible. The battle for attention, the battle against distraction, the battle against comparison, the battle against endless comfort, the battle against a world engineered to weaken patience. To have discipline today is almost revolutionary. To read deeply when others scroll endlessly, to train when others drift, to think when others react, to build when others complain, to remain silent when others perform, to protect focus when everything competes for it. This is modern Stoicism, not escaping the world, but remaining self-governed inside it. A disciplined person becomes difficult to seduce with nonsense. He does not need every trend, every opinion, every pleasure, every invitation, every validation. He has direction, and direction simplifies life. When you know where you are going, many temptations lose their charm, not because they stop being pleasurable, but because they become obviously costly. The disciplined mind sees cost. It asks, what will this do to my future? What will this do to my peace? What will this do to my self-respect? What will this do to my purpose? That question alone saves people, because the weak mind only asks, what do I want right now? The disciplined mind asks, what will this make of me? And that is the deeper question. Every choice is making something of you. Every habit is sculpting you. Every repeated action is carving the statue of your character. You are always becoming. The only question is whether you are becoming stronger or weaker, more free or more enslaved, more focused or more scattered, more courageous or more afraid, more disciplined or more controlled by appetite. This is why discipline cannot be postponed forever. You are being shaped even while you delay. Time is still passing. Habits are still forming. The future is still being built, either by intention or by neglect. Neglect is also a builder. It builds weakness, confusion, regret, lost opportunity, a life that feels accidental. Discipline builds differently. It builds slowly but honestly, a body that obeys, a mind that focuses, a spirit that endures, a character that stands, a life that reflects values instead of impulses. This is not easy. But ease was never the point. The point is to become someone you respect, and respect is earned through difficulty, not because suffering itself is noble, but because difficulty reveals and refines. Fire reveals what gold is. Pressure reveals what stone can bear. Hardship reveals what a person has built internally. If you avoid all hardship, you never discover your strength. If you avoid all discomfort, you remain fragile. If you avoid all discipline, you never become trustworthy to yourself. The Stoics did not seek pain for vanity. They accepted hardship as training. They understood that comfort may visit, but it should never rule. Seneca practiced voluntary discomfort, not because poverty was desirable, but because he wanted to know that he could survive without luxury. That is a powerful idea. Many people fear losing comfort because they have never trained themselves to stand without it. They fear silence because they have never trained solitude. They fear criticism because they have never trained self-respect. They fear failure because they have never trained resilience. Discipline trains you before life forces the lesson upon you, and life always tests the untrained. Better to meet discomfort willingly in practice than be shattered by it in crisis. This is why daily discipline matters. It is preparation. The workout prepares the body. The cold morning prepares the will. The difficult task prepares focus. The silent restraint prepares emotional control. The honest reflection prepares wisdom. Every disciplined act is rehearsal for the harder days. And when those days come, you will not be shocked by hardship. You will recognize it. You will say, "I have trained for this." That sentence is powerful, not because it removes pain, but because it gives pain context. A disciplined person suffers differently. He does not immediately ask, "Why me?" He asks, "What is required?" He does not collapse into resentment. He looks for the next right action. This is what makes the mind unbreakable, not the absence of pain, the presence of direction inside pain. And direction saves people. A person without direction can be destroyed by small things. A person with direction can endure enormous things, because he knows what he is enduring for. Purpose gives discipline meaning. Without purpose, discipline feels like punishment. With purpose, discipline becomes devotion. You are not merely waking early. You are becoming someone. You are not merely training. You are forging capacity. You are not merely avoiding temptation. You are protecting destiny. You are not merely working in silence. You are building a life that does not require permission from the world. This perspective matters because discipline without meaning becomes dry. But discipline connected to purpose becomes sacred. The mind needs a reason to endure. The reason does not need to impress others. It only needs to be true. Maybe you want peace, maybe strength, maybe freedom, maybe dignity, maybe to provide, maybe to create, maybe to stop living beneath your potential, maybe to prove to yourself that your past does not own your future. Whatever it is, let it be real. A real purpose can carry you through unreal discomfort. And as discipline grows, something unexpected happens. Your desires change. At first, you crave comfort. Later, you begin craving clarity. You begin preferring the peace that follows discipline over the pleasure that follows indulgence. You begin enjoying the feeling of keeping promises. You begin feeling discomfort when you betray your standard. This is when discipline has entered identity. It is no longer something you do. It becomes part of who you are. And this is how everything changes. The person who once needed motivation now has standards. The person who once feared discomfort now respects it. The person who once ran from responsibility now uses responsibility to grow. The person who once lived scattered now moves with direction. This is not a small transformation. It changes the entire atmosphere of a life. Your relationships change because you stop tolerating chaos that weakens you. Your work changes because focus becomes easier. Your body changes because your actions become consistent. Your mind changes because you stop feeding every distraction. Your confidence changes because you start trusting your word. Your peace changes because your life becomes aligned. And one day, you notice something quietly extraordinary. The same temptations that once owned you now feel smaller. The same emotions that once overwhelmed you now pass more quickly. The same obstacles that once frightened you now look manageable. Not because the world became weaker, because you became stronger. This is the reward of discipline, not applause, not perfection. Power, quiet power, the kind that does not need to be announced, the kind that comes from knowing you can face yourself honestly and not look away. That is rare. Many people cannot sit alone with themselves because they know the truth. They know the promises broken, the time wasted, the standards abandoned. But discipline restores the relationship with the self. Day by day, choice by choice, it says, you can trust me again. And that trust becomes unbreakable, not because you never fail, but because you always return. Return is everything. When the path is long, return matters more than emotion. When the mind is tired, return matters more than perfection. When life disrupts you, return matters more than guilt. This is why the disciplined person does not become dramatic after failure. He simply returns. No speech, no collapse, no self-hatred. Return. This is the quiet rhythm of greatness. Fall, learn, return, continue. Most people quit because they believe discipline should feel inspiring, but discipline often feels ordinary, repetitive, unseen, simple. That is why it works. It removes dependence on emotional highs. It makes greatness boring enough to repeat. And what can be repeated can be built. This is the secret. A life changes when the right actions become repeatable, not heroic. Repeatable. The person who can repeat right action becomes powerful over time. The person who only acts when inspired remains inconsistent, and inconsistency destroys trust. You cannot build an unbreakable mind with occasional intensity. You build it through daily evidence, small evidence, real evidence. The bed made, the body trained, the work completed, the temptation refused, the silence chosen, the boundary kept, the truth spoken, the distraction avoided, the path returned to. Each one seems small. Together they become identity, and identity becomes fate. This is why discipline changes everything, because it changes the person making the choices. And when the person changes, the entire life begins to change around him. Not instantly, but inevitably. You begin attracting different opportunities because you become capable of handling them. You begin earning different trust because you become reliable. You begin creating different results because your actions become aligned. You begin feeling different peace because your life is no longer ruled by impulse. This is not magic, it is cause and effect. The Stoics would not be surprised. They understood that character creates destiny. A scattered character creates a scattered life. A disciplined character creates a directed life. And a directed life becomes powerful, even if it is quiet, especially if it is quiet. The world may not notice immediately. Let it not notice. The mountain does not grow for applause. The river does not carve stone for recognition. The fire does not ask permission to burn. You do not need the world to witness every step of your transformation. Some of the most important rebuilding happens unseen, in silence, in solitude, in the dark before morning, when only you and your standard are present. That is where the future is decided, not in the applause, in the private choice. And if you can master the private choice, public life eventually changes, because the public self is built from the private self. A person who is undisciplined in private will eventually be exposed in public. A person who is disciplined in private will eventually become undeniable. Maybe not famous, maybe not celebrated, but undeniable to himself. And that matters most, because life is not merely about being seen, it is about being whole. And wholeness requires discipline. The discipline to stop lying to yourself, the discipline to stop delaying what matters, the discipline to stop feeding what weakens you, the discipline to stop returning to habits that steal your future, the discipline to choose the harder path when the easier one would quietly destroy you. This is not a harsh message. It is a hopeful one, because if discipline can be practiced, then transformation remains possible. No matter how long you have drifted, no matter how many promises you have broken, no matter how scattered your life has become, you can begin again, not with perfection, with one disciplined act, then another, then another. The path back to yourself is built the same way the path away from yourself was built. Repeated choices. The difference is direction. Start small if you must, but start honestly. Choose one promise. Keep it. Do not announce it. Do not decorate it. Do not wait to feel ready. Keep it. Let that kept promise become the first stone in the fortress. Then place another and another. Over time, something begins to rise. A mind that trusts itself. A body that supports it. A life that reflects it. A spirit that no longer collapses under every storm. This is the unbreakable mind. Not invincible, not emotionless, not perfect. Unbreakable because it knows how to return. Unbreakable because it is rooted in principle. Unbreakable because it has endured discomfort willingly. Unbreakable because it no longer worships comfort. Unbreakable because it has learned the difference between pain that destroys and pain that builds. And discipline is the teacher, a stern teacher, a quiet teacher, a teacher that does not flatter you. But if you stay with it, it gives you something the world cannot easily take: self-command. And self-command is the beginning of freedom. The alarm will sound again. The room will be cold again. The mind will negotiate again. Comfort will speak again. But one day, you will hear that voice and smile quietly, because it no longer owns you. You will rise, not because you feel like it, because you have become someone who rises. That is when discipline has changed you, when the action no longer feels like a debate, when the standard has become part of your nature, when the weaker self still speaks but no longer leads. That is the moment everything begins to change. Your mornings change, your thoughts change, your confidence changes, your relationships change, your future changes. Because you changed the one thing that follows you everywhere, your mind. And once the mind becomes disciplined, the world becomes less frightening. Hardship still comes, but you are not helpless. Temptation still appears, but you are not obedient. Fear still visits, but it does not command. Comfort still calls, but it no longer rules. This is what discipline gives you: Not an easy life, a stronger self. And perhaps that is what you needed all along, not a life without storms, but a mind that can stand through them, like stone on the mountain, like fire in the dark, like a quiet soul that has finally stopped abandoning itself. Discipline builds an unbreakable mind, and when the mind becomes unbreakable, everything changes.